Hello, my science lovers. For this particular episode of ScientistMel Shorts, we are going to talk about junk food addiction. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so what I'm essentially going to do today is I'm going to break down and essentially talk about junk food addiction, but we're going to primarily be answering these questions. What is it? What are the variances associated with junk food addiction? How can it be overcome, and how exactly does this sort of thing happen? Well, the simple breakdown is this. Junk food, essentially processed foods, have a high amount of sugar and fat. This in turn can affect the reward system within your brain, and over time you will have to actually eat more of this junk food in order to feel that reward, that high that you can get. This in turn contributes to weight gain and health problems, and you can actually experience withdrawal symptoms when you stop intaking this type of food. Now, junk food. Essentially, it's highly processed, so it has a lot of fat, it has a lot of sugar, it has a lot of calories. And when you eat these particular types of foods, it rewards your brain, so you eat more of it. And the more that you eat it, you become addicted. So when we're talking about junk food, and we're talking about all of these different things, what exactly does that mean? Well, before I get started, I want to first say this. I will not body shame anyone or shame people for what they eat. That is not what I do here, and I don't allow that on my channel. People are doing the best that they can with what they've got, and that is how I see things. Now, what I am going to do is inform you on how it is people can get addicted to junk food. I'm not making a moral judgment, and I will not judge anyone for eating junk food. Your body, your rules, and I respect that. My only stance is when people make decisions that hurt others. With that said, let's discuss this. So, junk food. Due to its highly processed nature, it fires off the mesolimbic system in the brain that releases dopamine. That's that feel-good neurotransmitter. Now, if junk food is indulged in at large amounts over a period of time, the brain develops a tolerance to it. Now, food addiction literally changes your brain. It trains it to want more of the junk food feeling. Now, with this, you end up eating more and more and more to try to gain that feeling again. Now, people with food addiction sometimes lose the ability to enjoy their food and keep going with it until they find that feeling again. Now, food addiction is a new emerging field. It met a lot of resistance, as a lot of science does in the beginning. Now, the reason for that is how we know something is real and not just a possibility is through that resistance. Now, around 2009, certainly even earlier, the term food addiction was under fire. Now, since then, science has made leaps and bounds in food addiction, showing not only the behavioral aspects of food addiction, but what it does to your brain to make you want it more. They have found the same link in people who have gained weight from eating such food in not only behavior, but also in their brain scans. So what I'm going to do, we're going to look at this for this particular image here. Boom! Let me shrink myself a little bit. You never know, sometimes it just overlaps. Fun things that happen on my channel. Now, essentially what we're looking at, just like in drug addiction, food addiction can affect the different reward systems in the brain and multiple structures. It can alter them so you develop a tolerance. The high intake of processed foods affects the delicate balance not only among the dopamine center, but also in the serotonin section. So when you take away the junk food, all of the structures that are affected by this higher dopamine release experience withdrawal symptoms. So here's an example of essentially a picture of the reward systems of your brain. So we have the dopamine pathways. They're right over here, trying to, a little cursor. So this essentially controls the motivation, that pleasure, euphoria that you feel, that motor functioning, so fine tuning. It also controls compulsion. So you feel more compelled to indulge more in this junk food. And it's also persevering. Words are hard, aren't they? Anyway, so that particular portion of the brain is the frontal cortex, the striatum. You also have nucleus accumbens. All of these different things that are in blue, that is your dopamine pathways. Now your serotonin pathways, that's your mood, your memory processing, sleep, and cognition. So that's everything that's in the pink. And so we see these blue lines here, that's all dopamine. These pink and the red lines, that's where we find all of the serotonin. And so there's a lot of overlap between the two. You can have areas that are affecting both the dopamine and the serotonin pathways. So when we're talking about this information, what exactly are we looking at? There is so much information when it comes to this about food addiction. So when I started researching this, I went down a rabbit hole looking at all of the connections between that and drug addiction. Brain scans of people who are addicted to food look like brain scans of people who are addicted to drugs. And on a personal note, I easily can be addicted to food. I tried an experiment once and took away the junk food. I felt icky, moody, and sluggish. I also noticed after about 6 months of not eating fast food, the moment I ate some nachos, I felt tingles all over my body. So I know how food affects me. Now, food addiction is not exclusive to people of size. People of smaller size can struggle with it as well. However, their genetics allows them a higher metabolism, but they certainly are not immune to the effects on the brain. My point? Junk food addiction is not exclusive to people of size, and no one should be shamed for this. There are various eating disorders which may or may not have a link to food addiction. Now, binge eating disorder is not the same. It's a compulsory thing. However, it isn't mutually exclusive from food addiction. Overeating in general can be different than food addiction. So if a person feels like they are addicted to food, the best course of action is to first contact your doctor. Look into psychologists who work with addiction and consider psychiatrists to help with possible medications to break the addictive cycle. And look to other healthy activities that might be able to give you that particular high. Now, it is important to note your intake, as many people who are addicted to food, junk food, lose the ability to control themselves. Your brain is now wired to make you mentally need this food. This is not an easy thing to fight against. This is also why a therapist is important in breaking this cycle. It is an active struggle. You have to force yourself to not indulge in this food with your brain screaming at you for you to do it. So have a little bit of sympathy and compassion for people who have this type of addiction, because it's a very real thing. All right, so let's look at this. So people are highly individual and at different levels of addiction. So it's important to keep in mind that this too is a spectrum. If you feel you might be addicted and want to shift your lifestyle choices, seek professionals to help you, because each case is different. So some symptoms of junk food addiction: overeating, continuous eating of certain foods, eat to a point of being sick. You worry about food, you go out of your way to get specific foods, you eat food instead of doing things that you would normally do, you avoid functions where food is present, and you can have withdrawal symptoms when you stop eating that food. So again, people are highly individual, but if you think you might be addicted to food, check with your doctor first. That's always the best course of action, at least the beginning course of action, in order to help you with that. If you feel that this is a thing that is affecting you, go to your doctor. All right. Now, as far as treatment is going to be individual and take time. Changing your brain is a hefty task. It can be done, but it is work. Anyone who suffers a mental illness or any kind of addiction will tell you that therapy is hard. It is work, and it requires you to keep at it. Because we are a must-have-it-now society with our instant gratification through online interaction, this makes it particularly difficult as we have this instant want in other facets of our life. So, if you are a junk food addict or food addict, be kind to yourself. Listen to professionals who are experts in this field and understand this can happen to absolutely anyone, and it does. 50% of obese people and 30% of those overweight and 20% of those at a healthy weight are addicted to food. So it can happen to literally anybody. So what have we covered at this point? We've talked about food addiction. What is it? What are the variances? How does it happen? And how can it be overcome? So we've kind of broken it all down to this. And here's essentially what its sum up is. Processed foods have high fat and sugar. This affects the reward system of the brain. It requires more food over time to feel that reward and thus contributes to weight gain and all kinds of other health problems. And you can exhibit withdrawal symptoms when you stop ingesting this food. So, my sources. You guys want to take a look at my sources? Let me get those up for you. And if you're curious, and I don't expect anybody to be able to read all of these, but you can check out my website, ScientistMel.com, and you'll be able to see all of these different sources available to you. So NIH has a lot of stuff, WebMD, Psychology Today. There's so many articles. So if you feel like you can't read all this, fear not. ScientistMel.com/resources has everything that you need to check out all of my sources, so you can dive in and see what your thoughts are. And if you have questions or comments, hit me up or questions or anything to say, you can hit me up down below in the comments, or you can find me on Twitter. Where else can you find me? You can find me all kinds of places. You can find me ScientistMel.com, Patreon.com/ScientistMel. If you like what I do, buy me a coffee each month. I run specials all the time. I send my patrons postcards, t-shirts, all kinds of stuff. Also, I'm on Periscope, YouTube, Facebook, and also on Twitch. And so that has been the science of junk food addiction. How exciting is that? So check this out. There I am. And this originally aired, if you like my live streams, this originally aired on my live stream at May 4th, 2019. So you can check out the live stream if you want. So I'm going to take a moment to thank all of my amazing patrons. They're wonderful. And then I'll sign off. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you next time. Sending squishy science hugs. Bye.